The streets of Renaissance Florence echoed with the footsteps of merchants, nobles, and beggars alike, each carrying the visible markers of their station in life. Among them walked Niccolò Machiavelli, observing with sharp eyes how the external appearance of poverty created invisible barriers that transformed simple challenges into insurmountable obstacles. His penetrating analysis of human nature would reveal a fundamental truth that transcends centuries: appearance shapes reality, and those who master both their external presentation and internal weaknesses become truly undefeatable. In the grand theater of human existence, two profound truths intersect with devastating clarity. First, poverty in appearance, whether real or perceived, magnifies every challenge, turning molehills into mountains and simple negotiations into battles for survival. Second, the individual who systematically destroys their own weaknesses achieves an invincibility that no external force can breach. These insights, drawn from Machiavellian observation and refined through centuries of human struggle, form the cornerstone of understanding how power operates in both personal and political spheres. The phenomenon begins subtly, almost imperceptibly. A young entrepreneur enters a boardroom wearing an ill-fitting suit, carrying a weathered briefcase, and speaking with the hesitation of someone unsure of their welcome. Before a single word about their business proposal is uttered, the room has already rendered judgment. The poverty of appearance, not necessarily reflecting actual financial status but perceived lack of resources, connections, or sophistication, immediately places them at a disadvantage. What might have been a straightforward presentation of a viable business concept becomes an uphill battle against preconceived notions, unconscious bias, and the weight of societal expectations. This dynamic extends far beyond business transactions. In courtrooms, defendants who appear impoverished face harsher sentences for identical crimes compared to their well-dressed counterparts. Students from visibly poor backgrounds encounter lower expectations from teachers, affecting their educational outcomes. Job applicants without the markers of middle-class respectability, proper attire, confident demeanor, polished communication skills, find themselves eliminated before their qualifications are seriously considered. The appearance of poverty becomes a multiplier of difficulty, transforming routine social interactions into tests of worthiness. Machiavelli understood that in the realm of power and influence, perception often matters more than reality. The prince who appears weak invites challenge, the diplomat who seems desperate receives unfavorable terms, the merchant who looks poor pays higher prices and receives inferior goods. This isn't merely about superficial judgment, it reflects deeper psychological mechanisms that govern human interaction. People instinctively assess the resources, connections, and capabilities of others based on visible cues. These assessments then determine how much effort someone is willing to invest in the relationship, how much respect they're willing to show, and how much advantage they believe they can extract. The weight of appearing poor or weak creates a cascade of additional obstacles. Every negotiation becomes more difficult because the other party senses desperation. Every request for help encounters skepticism about ability to reciprocate. Every attempt to form alliances faces questions about what value the apparently weak party brings to the relationship. The individual struggling with poverty of appearance must work twice as hard to achieve the same results that come easily to those who project prosperity and strength. Consider the small business owner seeking a loan. Two individuals with identical business plans, credit scores, and experience walk into a bank. One arrives in a luxury car, wearing expensive clothes, speaking with the confidence that comes from a lifetime of privilege. The other takes public transportation, wears clean but obviously inexpensive clothing, and carries the subtle markers of someone who has struggled financially. Though their proposals are identical, the banker's unconscious assessment begins before either speaks. The apparently prosperous applicant benefits from the assumption of competence, while the apparently struggling applicant faces skeptical scrutiny of every detail. This dynamic extends into personal relationships as well. Dating, friendship formation, and social networking all become more challenging when operating from a position of apparent poverty or weakness. People naturally gravitate toward those who appear successful, capable, and resourceful. The individual who projects struggle, whether financial, emotional, or social, finds that others are less willing to invest time and energy in building relationships. This creates a cruel irony: those who most need social connections and support find them hardest to obtain. The appearance of poverty affects even basic service interactions. The customer who looks wealthy receives better treatment at restaurants, more helpful service at retail stores, and greater consideration from service providers. The apparently poor customer faces indifference, skepticism, and, sometimes, outright hostility. Simple transactions become exercises in proving worthiness and overcoming prejudice. Yet within this harsh reality lies a profound opportunity for transformation. The second half of our equation, that the man who destroys his weak self can never be destroyed by others, points toward a path of liberation that goes far deeper than mere image management. This isn't about putting on a facade or pretending to be something you're not. Instead, it's about the systematic elimination of actual weaknesses that create vulnerability to external manipulation and destruction. The process begins with brutal self-assessment. The individual must identify not just the obvious weaknesses, lack of skills, knowledge gaps, character flaws, but also the subtle vulnerabilities that others can exploit. These might include emotional dependencies, fear of confrontation, need for approval, tendency to procrastinate, or inability to make difficult decisions. Each weakness represents a point where external forces can apply pressure to achieve their desired outcomes. Consider the employee who desperately needs their job and everyone knows it. Their obvious weakness, financial dependence combined with limited options, makes them vulnerable to exploitation. They accept worse conditions, longer hours, and lower pay because their desperation is visible. Contrast this with the employee who has multiple options, savings to fall back on, and skills in demand elsewhere. Even if they want to keep their current position, their lack of desperation gives them negotiating power and protection from abuse. The destruction of weakness requires more than simply building strengths, it demands the elimination of dependencies and vulnerabilities that others can exploit. Financial independence removes the leverage that employers, landlords, and creditors can wield. Emotional independence eliminates the power that manipulative individuals can exercise through approval, rejection, or emotional manipulation. Intellectual independence prevents others from taking advantage of ignorance or naivety. This process of weakness elimination operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Physical weakness invites aggression and disrespect, so physical conditioning becomes essential. Mental weakness allows for intellectual manipulation and poor decision-making, requiring the development of critical thinking skills and emotional regulation. Social weakness leaves one isolated and vulnerable, necessitating the cultivation of genuine relationships and network-building skills. The financial dimension deserves particular attention because it underlies many other forms of vulnerability. The individual who lives paycheck to paycheck, carries significant debt, or lacks emergency reserves remains perpetually vulnerable to economic coercion. Building financial independence through increased income, reduced expenses, debt elimination, and asset accumulation removes one of the primary sources of external control. This isn't merely about comfort or luxury, it's about eliminating a fundamental vulnerability that others can exploit. However, the process extends far beyond material concerns. Emotional neediness creates vulnerability to manipulation by those willing to exploit human needs for connection, approval, and validation. The individual who desperately needs others to like them becomes a target for those who understand how to provide and withdraw approval strategically. Destroying this weakness means developing genuine self-confidence, independent validation, and the ability to form relationships from a position of strength rather than need. Intellectual weakness, lack of knowledge, poor reasoning skills, susceptibility to propaganda and manipulation leaves one vulnerable to deception and poor decision-making. The person who doesn't understand basic financial principles becomes prey for predatory lenders. The individual who can't recognize logical fallacies falls victim to manipulative arguments. The citizen who lacks historical and political knowledge becomes susceptible to demagogues and false promises. The destruction of weakness requires developing what might be called anti-fragility, the quality of becoming stronger under stress rather than merely surviving it. This means building systems and capabilities that actually benefit from challenges rather than simply enduring them. The entrepreneur who sees market downturns as opportunities to acquire assets cheaply demonstrates anti-fragility. The individual who views criticism as valuable feedback for improvement shows this quality in personal development. Physical anti-fragility might involve training that actually benefits from stress, weightlifting, martial arts, endurance activities that build strength through controlled damage and recovery. Mental anti-fragility could include intellectual practices that strengthen under challenge, debate, problem-solving under pressure, learning from failure. Emotional anti-fragility manifests as the ability to maintain stability and even grow stronger during relationship conflicts, professional setbacks, or personal crises. The systematically strong individual becomes increasingly difficult to destroy because they have eliminated the pressure points that others typically use to exert control. They cannot be threatened with financial ruin because they have reserves and multiple income streams. They cannot be isolated because they have cultivated genuine relationships based on mutual value rather than dependency. They cannot be intimidated because they have developed physical and mental resilience. They cannot be deceived because they have built analytical capabilities and knowledge bases that reveal manipulation attempts. This transformation addresses both halves of our equation simultaneously. As genuine weaknesses are eliminated and real strengths are built, the appearance of poverty and weakness naturally fades. The person who has eliminated financial desperation, emotional neediness, and intellectual vulnerability no longer projects the markers that invite exploitation. Their confidence becomes authentic rather than forced. Their independence shows in their posture, speech, and decision-making. Their strength becomes evident in how they handle challenges and setbacks. The feedback loop between internal strength and external perception creates accelerating returns. As others recognize that someone cannot be easily manipulated or destroyed, they begin treating that person with greater respect and caution. This improved treatment reinforces the individual's confidence and provides better opportunities for further development. The strong get stronger, while the weak often get weaker, trapped in cycles of exploitation and diminished expectations. Yet this process requires careful navigation of several potential pitfalls. The first danger lies in mistaking superficial changes for genuine transformation. Simply dressing better, speaking more confidently, or projecting false strength without eliminating underlying weaknesses creates a facade that sophisticated opponents can see through and exploit. Authentic strength must be built from the foundation up. The second pitfall involves overcompensation, becoming so focused on eliminating weakness that one becomes rigid, closed off, or unable to form genuine connections. True strength includes appropriate vulnerability and the ability to ask for help when needed. The goal isn't to become invulnerable in all circumstances but to eliminate the specific weaknesses that others can exploit for their benefit at your expense. The third danger lies in using newly acquired strength to exploit others rather than simply protecting oneself. The individual who has learned to recognize and eliminate their own weaknesses gains insight into how to exploit weakness in others. The ethical response involves using this knowledge defensively while helping others strengthen themselves rather than preying upon their vulnerabilities. The practical application of these principles requires a systematic approach to personal development that addresses all dimensions of potential weakness. Financial strength begins with understanding money, how it works, how to manage it, how to make it work for you rather than against you. This includes basic financial literacy, debt management, investment principles, and multiple income stream development. The goal isn't necessarily wealth for its own sake but, rather the elimination of financial desperation and dependency. Physical strength encompasses not just fitness but also health, energy, and resilience. This includes cardiovascular conditioning, muscular development, flexibility, and recovery capabilities. It also extends to nutrition, sleep, stress management, and the ability to maintain peak performance under pressure. The objective is developing a physical foundation that supports mental and emotional strength while projecting competence and vitality. Mental strength involves developing cognitive capabilities, emotional regulation, and decision-making skills. This includes critical thinking, pattern recognition, memory enhancement, and learning acceleration. It encompasses stress management, emotional intelligence, and the ability to maintain clarity under pressure. The aim is creating mental resilience that enables good decisions even in difficult circumstances. Social strength means building genuine relationships, communication skills, and influence capabilities without becoming dependent on others for validation or support. This includes networking, leadership development, conflict resolution, and the ability to inspire and motivate others. The goal is creating a social foundation that provides support and opportunities while maintaining personal autonomy. Professional strength involves developing skills, knowledge, and reputation that create value in the marketplace and reduce dependency on any single employer or opportunity. This includes technical expertise, industry knowledge, professional networks, and entrepreneurial capabilities. The objective is achieving professional autonomy and multiple options rather than single point of failure career dependence. The integration of these various forms of strength creates what might be called comprehensive anti-fragility, the ability to not just survive but thrive under pressure across all major life domains. The individual who achieves this integration becomes increasingly difficult for others to control, manipulate, or destroy because they have eliminated the dependencies and vulnerabilities that others typically exploit. This transformation fundamentally alters the dynamic described in the first part of our equation. When someone no longer appears poor or weak, because they genuinely aren't poor or weak in the ways that matter, the obstacles they face diminish rather than multiply. Negotiations become easier because they're not desperate. Relationships improve because they offer value rather than need. Opportunities increase because others see potential for mutual benefit rather than one-sided extraction. The appearance of strength based on genuine capability creates a virtuous cycle where external respect and better treatment reinforce internal confidence and provide additional opportunities for growth. The strong individual receives better terms in negotiations, more attractive partnership offers, and greater consideration for opportunities. These advantages compound over time, creating increasing distance between those who have eliminated their weaknesses and those who remain trapped in cycles of vulnerability. Yet perhaps the most profound insight emerges from understanding that this process is available to anyone willing to undertake it systematically. The principles apply regardless of starting position, background, or current circumstances. The individual beginning from a position of apparent poverty and obvious weakness can, through dedicated effort to eliminate genuine vulnerabilities, achieve a position of practical invulnerability. This democratizing aspect of strength building through weakness elimination offers hope even in seemingly hopeless circumstances. The person trapped in a difficult job can begin building skills and savings that create options. The individual stuck in an exploitative relationship can develop the independence needed to establish healthier boundaries. The citizen feeling powerless against institutional forces can build knowledge and capabilities that enable effective resistance. The key lies in understanding that this transformation requires patience, consistency, and systematic effort across multiple domains simultaneously. Quick fixes and surface-level changes don't create lasting invulnerability. Only the genuine elimination of exploitable weaknesses combined with the development of authentic strengths provides protection against those who would destroy others for their own benefit. The historical examples of individuals who successfully applied these principles provide both inspiration and practical guidance. Frederick Douglass transformed himself from an enslaved person into one of the most powerful orators and writers of his era by systematically eliminating his intellectual and social weaknesses while building genuine capabilities that made him valuable to the abolitionist movement. His transformation included learning to read and write in secret, developing oratory skills through practice, building networks among free blacks and white allies, and creating financial independence through his writing and speaking. Similarly, Benjamin Franklin's rise from poverty to international prominence illustrates the systematic application of weakness elimination and strength building. He identified specific character defects and social liabilities, then developed systematic approaches to address each one. His famous chart of virtues represented a practical tool for eliminating weaknesses, while his business ventures, scientific inquiries, and political activities built multiple forms of strength simultaneously. Modern examples abound as well. The entrepreneur who builds a business from nothing often follows similar patterns, identifying market weaknesses in their knowledge or capabilities, systematically addressing these gaps, building financial and professional strength, and ultimately achieving independence from traditional employment structures. The individual who escapes poverty typically does so through similar processes of weakness elimination and capability building. The principles apply equally to organizations, communities, and nations. The country that reduces its dependencies on foreign resources while building domestic capabilities becomes less vulnerable to international pressure. The community that develops local economic resilience while eliminating social divisions becomes harder for outside forces to exploit. The organization that eliminates single points of failure while building diverse capabilities becomes more resilient against competitive threats. Understanding these dynamics provides crucial insight into why some individuals, organizations, and societies thrive while others remain trapped in cycles of exploitation and weakness. Those who understand the relationship between appearance, genuine capability, and vulnerability can systematically address each component to achieve practical invulnerability. The ethical dimensions of this understanding deserve careful consideration. Knowledge of how weakness creates vulnerability and how strength provides protection can be used either to protect oneself and help others or to exploit those who remain weak. The individual who achieves strength through weakness elimination faces a fundamental choice: use this knowledge to prey upon others or to create a more just and equitable environment where others can also build genuine strength. The highest application of these principles involves using one's own transformation as a model and resource for helping others achieve similar results. This creates network effects where individual strength builds community resilience, making everyone less vulnerable to exploitation and manipulation. The alternative, using strength to exploit others, ultimately undermines the foundation of that strength by creating enemies and unstable social conditions. The long-term perspective reveals that societies and communities where these principles are widely understood and applied become more prosperous, stable, and just. When individuals know how to eliminate their own weaknesses and build genuine strengths, they become less susceptible to demagogues, less vulnerable to economic manipulation, and more capable of creating value for themselves and others. Conversely, societies where large numbers of people remain trapped in cycles of weakness and dependency become vulnerable to internal and external manipulation. Understanding this dynamic provides insight into why education, economic opportunity, and social mobility remain crucial for social stability and prosperity. The synthesis of Machiavellian insight with practical personal development creates a framework for understanding and navigating the complex dynamics of power, appearance, and genuine capability in human affairs. The recognition that poverty in appearance multiplies obstacles while the elimination of weakness creates invulnerability provides both diagnostic tools for understanding current circumstances and prescriptive guidance for transformation. The individual who grasps these concepts fully understands that their current position, whether strong or weak, prosperous or struggling, represents a point in an ongoing process rather than a fixed destination. Weakness can be eliminated, strengths can be built, and vulnerabilities can be transformed into anti-fragile capabilities that actually benefit from stress and challenge. This understanding fundamentally alters one's relationship with adversity and opportunity. Challenges become information about which weaknesses require attention. Setbacks become feedback about which capabilities need strengthening. Competition becomes motivation for continued growth rather than a threat to be feared. The practical application requires developing systematic approaches to assessment, planning, and execution across all relevant domains of strength and weakness. This might involve regular audits of financial position, health status, skill development, relationship quality, and professional capabilities. It includes setting specific goals for weakness elimination and strength building while measuring progress consistently. Most importantly, it requires maintaining long-term perspective while taking consistent daily action. The transformation from weakness to strength, from vulnerability to anti-fragility, occurs through accumulated small improvements rather than dramatic overnight changes. Each day presents opportunities to eliminate small weaknesses and build incremental strengths that compound over time into significant transformation. The ultimate insight reveals that this process is simultaneously the most practical and the most profound work any individual can undertake. On the practical level, it directly addresses the immediate challenges of navigating a world where appearance affects reality and weakness invites exploitation. On the profound level, it represents the fundamental human opportunity to transcend circumstances through conscious development and systematic self-improvement. The man who destroys his weak self truly cannot be destroyed by others because he has eliminated the points of leverage that others use to exert control. Having built genuine strength across multiple domains, he operates from a position of choice rather than compulsion, abundance rather than scarcity, confidence rather than desperation. This transformation affects not only his own life but radiates outward to influence family, community, and society in positive ways. The journey from apparent poverty and obvious weakness to genuine strength and practical invulnerability represents one of the most significant transformations available to human beings. It requires courage to face one's weaknesses honestly, discipline to address them systematically, and persistence to continue the work even when progress seems slow. Yet for those willing to undertake this journey, the rewards include not only personal liberation but the ability to help others achieve similar transformation. In the end, Machiavelli's insight about the relationship between appearance and obstacles combines with the deeper truth about weakness and invulnerability to provide a comprehensive framework for understanding human development and social dynamics. Those who master these principles gain not only personal advantage but the opportunity to contribute to creating a world where strength, rather than weakness, becomes the norm, and where genuine capability, rather than mere appearance, determines outcomes. The path forward becomes clear: systematic elimination of genuine weaknesses, methodical building of authentic strengths, and the integration of these developments into a coherent approach to life that creates practical invulnerability while contributing to the elevation of others. This represents not just personal development but the foundation for building stronger communities and more just societies where human potential can flourish rather than be exploited.